Am I the a-hole for refusing to date a pregnant woman and potentially a single mother? I'm going to keep this as short as I can, but it's a bit of a mess. I, 27 male, have been working with Richard, 31 male, a colleague of mine. He's been trying to set me up with his family friend, Sarah, 28 female, and I agreed to go on a date with her. On the date, I thought she was really fun, and we seemed to be pretty compatible. We had a good time and I was actually looking forward to seeing her again. But during the second date, Sarah mentioned that she's pregnant. She's about 4 months along, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. I took a long time to process it and didn't know how to reply. Personally, I didn't know people expecting a child still went on dates, both men and women. I always thought the baby would be their priority for at least 2 years. Maybe I'm out of touch, but I'm not judging them. That said, I just don't want to date someone with a child. Not because of some spicy reason, I just don't want to be a stepfather. If I scold my own kid, they'd be upset. But if I say something to someone else's, there's a high chance of hearing, "You're not my father." And then there's the whole situation with the baby's father. Real dad, fake dad drama I don't want to be part of. Honestly, I don't think I could love someone else's child like my own. So, I tried to stay calm during the date. I didn't know how to react or how to say it to her, but by the end, when she asked when we could meet again, I had to be honest and told her that I didn't want to continue the relationship because I don't see myself taking on the huge responsibility of being a stepfather. Afterward, Richard was furious with me. He told me that Sarah had been cheated on by her husband, and during the divorce, she found out she was pregnant. She didn't want to keep the baby because she didn't want to raise it alone, but all her friends, including Richard, persuaded her to keep it, saying that there are plenty of good guys out there who would step up. Richard then told me that the first good guy he thought of was me. He said I was the only one she liked among the guys they set her up with. She was clearly upset about being rejected, though she didn't say anything to him, but it was obvious she was sad. At that point, I was frustrated. I didn't even know she was pregnant before the date, and now I'm being pushed into this situation? I told Richard that while I feel bad for Sarah, it's not my responsibility to fix her situation. I'm still figuring things out, and I'm not ready to be with someone who's pregnant. It's sad, but it's just not something I want to take on. After that, I started noticing my colleagues giving me the cold shoulder. Ben, 28 male, one of them, told me that Richard had been telling people I almost caused a pregnant woman to lose her child because of my behavior. I set the record straight with Ben, and now he's suggesting I take this to HR because of how Richard is portraying me. So, am I the a-hole for not wanting to date a pregnant woman? Now for the top comments. Since Richard has brought the workplace into it, I would bring in HR. I am shocked that he set you up knowing she was pregnant and didn't tell you. As you said, it isn't your responsibility to fix the situation. Richard convinced her to keep the kid. Why can't he be a good guy and help raise it? That's the beauty of Richard's deceit. He's the father. Did you actually stop and ask her, considering the change in her future circumstances incoming and her recent divorce, what she was looking for from dating? She may have had no intention of a serious relationship and asking you to be a stepdaddy. She may have had no intention of becoming a family with whoever she dates. Maybe she just wanted someone to have fun with and a few dates when she's not parenting. I didn't ask her anything about this. As I said, I never wanted to date someone with kids. At that moment, I didn't even know what to say to her. She just wanted someone to have fun with and a few dates when she's not parenting. I'm looking for a full-fledged relationship, not like a part-time one, so asking her about this wouldn't have changed anything anyway. Not the a-hole. Dating isn't a charity program, and agreeing to a date doesn't mean you signed up for stepdad boot camp. You were honest, respectful, and didn't lead her on. That's more than a lot of people would do. Richard needs to chill with the hero complex and stop trying to recruit you for a role you never auditioned for. Taking this to HR might not be a bad move if your workplace is turning into a soap opera over your personal boundaries. Next story. Am I the a-hole for insulting my husband for what he said about our daughter's boyfriend? My daughter, 17 female, recently started dating a boy 17 male. He is her first boyfriend. One of my biggest concerns when my daughter started dating was the possibility of her being mistreated, an obvious worry. However, after meeting her boyfriend at one of his baseball games, she met him through one of her friends in baseball, I realized this was not something I needed to be seriously concerned about. He is genuinely one of the sweetest people I have ever met. Every time I see him interact with the coaches, his teammates, his opponents, my daughter, etc., it is always positive. He is generally a very soft-spoken and kind individual, always positive and happy. I also say this with no ill intent, but he is fairly short and somewhat tubby, which is relevant to my husband's opinion. I obviously do not care about this, as he is a good person and clearly treats my daughter well. When my husband met him earlier, however, he did not seem as happy. Once he had left, my husband told me that he didn't think he was right for our daughter. He made comments about him not being man enough. I said that our daughter clearly loves him, and he clearly loves our daughter, and that I'm happy she's with someone we know is going to treat her right. My husband said that he would rather her be with a real man, not some short little gay kid. I got a little mad at this and said, what would you rather have him be then? Some big macho man that snaps at our daughter? He responded by saying that would be better than some fat pansy. I told him he was just being an annoying prick to the kid, for no reason other than he doesn't think he's man enough for some stupid arbitrary reason, and that he should be supporting our daughter. He said, if you're fine with our daughter dating a freaking pansy, so be it, I guess. He stormed off, and I've been reflecting on it and think maybe what I said was uncalled for, as he has his own perspective on these things as a dad. And I should not have started throwing around insults, as that does nothing to fix this issue for our daughter and her boyfriend. Now for the comments. So he would rather your daughter be married to a brute, tough guy who treats her like crap than a shorter, chubby kid who treats her well? So appearance is actually more important than character to your husband. Tell your husband you did some research and found out there is zero obligation for him to bang your daughter's boyfriend so he can actually shove his opinion up his own butt. Not the a-hole, but pay attention to how he acts and what else he has these opinions on. He doesn't think like that in a vacuum. He's got to be an a-hole in 4D. Not only does OP's husband value appearance above character, he values appearance above his own daughter's well-being. That's just sick. He'd rather his daughter date some 6-foot macho man who hurts her than a chubby short kid she loves and who loves her back. I wonder when he watches Beauty and the Beast, does he root for Gaston? If my husband said something like this, it would kill any attraction I have towards him. OP's husband is obviously homophobic. I don't know how she can stay with someone who values toxic masculinity over the safety and happiness of his own child. Such a turn-off. People like OP's husband are so emotional and low IQ. It's a wonder they managed to get married in the first place. I assume it's a road lined with a lot of overlooked red flags. This is not only about appearance. OP's husband doesn't like the boyfriend because being nice to everyone is not masculine enough. Everyone sucks here except your daughter and her boyfriend if you don't nip this in the bud. Stop entertaining this BS. He has his own perspective on these things as a dad. Stop. This is your daughter. Do you really want the #1 male influence in her life, telling her that her safety and well-being is less important than the perception of adequate gender roles? Step up and demand better from your husband. Don't demand anything of the husband because you won't get it. He's an a-hole. He'll only dig his heels in. Instead, talk to and support your daughter. Let her know how much you approve of her boyfriend and warn her that her dad might cause problems with his backwards BS, so she'd best keep the boyfriend scarce when he's around. Discretion is the better strategy with these things sometimes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for demanding that my fiancé's parents change their plans to have a vacation at the same place as our honeymoon? My fiancé and I have our wedding coming up in April. We had brainstormed for a while about where to spend our honeymoon. We went over the more popular and well-known places, but then landed on a more offbeat destination that I felt would truly be a great place for us to start our life as a married couple. I've been looking forward to it just being the two of us. I know he has a really hectic work schedule, and we were going to make the most out of this. A couple of days ago, he told me that his parents had been impressed by how hyped I was about it, and were planning on going there for a vacation too, largely overlapping with our dates. They're staying at the same hotel as us. I was livid. They can go any other time. Why now? He said he had suggested that, but his mom said they had taken time off for the wedding too, and it worked well with their plans. Also, since we're going to be going back, it would allow them to maybe see us a few times before we leave. I was almost in tears. I was so angry. He tried to reassure me, saying they had promised it would be two separate things, and they wouldn't be inserting themselves into our honeymoon. They want us to enjoy it, and they'd be doing their own thing. I want to believe it, but I know his mom. I like her as a soon-to-be mother-in-law, but she can be very clingy and routinely laments how far he, and now we, are from them. So I just have a feeling the two plans are not going to be as independent as he thinks they'll be. I vented about it to my parents too. My mom agreed with me that this isn't right, while my dad is more on the fence about it. He doesn't think everything is ruined. I've demanded my fiancé make them change their plans. He says he asked them to. They promised to do their own thing. What can he do? Tell them he doesn't believe them and call them liars? I messed up here and said if that's what it takes. He got quiet, and I realized that was too much and sincerely apologized for crossing the line. This has been eating me up. I was envisioning a certain type of honeymoon, and now this happened. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. As much as it sucks, the only way to truly secure an in-law-free honeymoon would be to cancel your plans and go somewhere else. Not ideal, but there's no way you're not going to accidentally bump into them the whole time they're there. A few other comments have said this too. I truly appreciate what you're saying. I know I'm overreacting here, but this makes me want to bawl my eyes out. Not overreacting. If you think this will change post-wedding, think again. This is your future. When people show you who they are, believe them. Not the a-hole. I would personally change the hotel, the dates, or both. Or stay at a different hotel during the dates they're going to be there. Also, a no cell phone policy, so they can't get a hold of you. But to be honest, this is a husband problem, not an in-law problem. You should have shut her down point blank, at even the suggestion of going to your honeymoon destination at the same time. The dates can't really be changed. I'd be okay with that, but I know it wouldn't work for him. He had to move around some work stuff for us to finally land on these dates. A different hotel could work, but this is a coastal area, and I really wanted a hotel close to the beach. I'll start looking for some others too. This hotel had really good reviews as well. Because it's not a huge city or something, if people want to meet, it's not too inconvenient. Which sucks because what if they decide they do want to meet? And what if we run into each other on the beach? I'd have to change what I plan on wearing too. I'm just really hoping they change their plans because, quite honestly, if I'm the one who has to change plans, I might not end up being a good daughter-in-law. If you do decide to go ahead and marry him and stick to the same dates, change the hotel, no phones the whole time, turn them off and put them in the hotel safe. No plans to meet up, absolutely no contact with them at all. But the fact that you'd even have to consider this shows what a disappointment your future husband is. I'm sad for you that you're settling for this. I thought this over more. I was heartened by the response here because I thought I was the one being over the top about this. But I can see that most people agree that what they're doing isn't right. I really don't want to change plans. I'm going to see him after work and just stress how important it is to me that they not come. I'm going to talk about them respectfully, but be firm, because last time I went a little over the line, which I feel derailed our conversation. Last story. Am I the a-hole for admitting to my son that I love his mother more than him and telling him he's acting self-centered? My son moved out right after graduating college last year. Since then, he's been very preoccupied with his own life. My wife and I couldn't be prouder of him, but we do wish he made a little more effort to keep in touch, especially since he only lives 30 minutes away. Months would go by without hearing from him, and we were always the ones to reach out first. We never complained about it to him until my wife's birthday. Her birthday was 2 days ago, and we didn't get a call or a surprise visit. She was a little upset but chose not to confront him. I decided to call him about it, not out of anger, just as a reminder. I said, "Hey buddy, you missed your mom's birthday." He immediately apologized and asked me to wish her a happy birthday on his behalf. I told him it would be nice if he could visit us soon because we miss him. Apparently that set him off. He told me that he has his own life to live and that we have ours. I told him I understood, but we're still his parents and want to stay close. That's when he bluntly said he doesn't want a close relationship with us and that he's frustrated we won't leave him alone. I asked him why, and out of nowhere, he brought up something from when he was 10 years old. He said he overheard my wife and me saying that we love each other more than we love him. I was completely confused because I don't recall ever saying anything like that. When I asked for more context, he said we had been talking about our own parents' marriages. And at some point, I said something along the lines of, even though I love him a lot, I love his mother the most. My wife apparently agreed with me, and that conversation has tainted his view of our relationship ever since. I told him there was nothing wrong with what I said, and that he was acting like a self-centered brat who thinks the world revolves around him. He told me to go to hell. When I told my wife about what happened, she said I was wrong for calling him that, even though I believe it was true. You're the a-hole. First of all, he is as you raised him. Secondly, kids don't just suddenly decide to let go of relationships with their parents because they heard something like that. In a home with engaged available parents, kids flip out and tell their parents they overheard something upsetting, or they demand to know why they would say such a thing. They don't just keep it a secret for 20 years. Something else was going on. It may be that you meant that you love your wife and understood that she would be your partner even when your kids grew up and moved on, but clearly you did make your child feel neglected. If you want a relationship, calling your son a self-centered a-hole isn't a great way to begin. Did it even occur to you to ask how he felt or try to clarify what you meant, or express any sadness about the fact that he did not in fact feel loved? Did you think to tell him you would like to have a better relationship? Do you even want that? It wasn't just the one thing. Other stuff happened that you're not aware of or are actively ignoring. Not necessarily. Sometimes it is the one thing. OP's kid internalized his parents' love for each other as they're not having any love for him. Few people would have the courage to address that in case they found out it was true. He was 10 years old at the time. It is actually not at all reasonable to believe that in an otherwise loving, supportive family, a child that age would hear their parents say something like that and that they would accept it as true in a simple, uncomplicated way that they never questioned for decades after, or that it would never come up again. I mean, can we blame him? He's probably internalized that for years. And then you call him spoiled because he thinks you don't love him as much, when really you should have said those are two different forms of love. You're the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my ex's friends the real reason we broke up? I'm 26 male, recently broke up with my girlfriend Lisa, 25 female, after being together for 3 years. The reason? I caught her cheating on me. A couple of weeks ago, I came home early from a work trip to surprise her, only to find another guy's jacket on the couch. When I asked her about it, she admitted she'd been seeing him for months. Obviously, I ended things immediately. She apologized but tried to downplay it, saying it didn't mean anything, and even asked if we could stay friends. I told her there was no chance. After the breakup, Lisa told all our mutual friends that we drifted apart and made it seem like the breakup was mutual. She even hinted that I was the one who grew distant. I didn't say anything at first because I didn't want to stir up drama. But last weekend at the mutual friend's party, one of her friends came up to me and asked why I broke Lisa's heart. That was my breaking point. I calmly told her friend the truth, that Lisa cheated on me and that's why we broke up. Now Lisa's furious with me, saying I'm ruining her reputation and that I had no right to tell people about her personal life. Some of our mutual friends agree with her and say I should have kept the details private. Others think she brought this on herself by lying. Am I the a-hole for telling the truth when asked? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She made it an issue when she decided to go begging for sympathy and telling her friends that you broke her heart. You were willing to go with drifted apart, but she crossed the line, and you were fine telling the truth. Exactly this. She should have shut up instead of playing up the breakup and making a sob story. Yes, shut up should be the final answer for most of the threads here. Not the a-hole. If she was worried about her reputation, then she shouldn't have been a cheater. She also had no right to tell people lies about what happened, so it's not your fault you had to set them straight. It's on her that you had to tell people about her personal life. And I will never understand why people think it didn't mean anything will help the situation. To me, that's even worse. Like, oh, you didn't even have a personal connection with this person, but chose to cheat anyway? You literally threw our relationship away for someone who didn't mean anything? Don't be rude. Whores have a legitimate profession, even though people get skeevy about it. She's just a cheater. Fair point, lol. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my ex-wife about our son's talent show and then telling her it's not my fault she's screwing up her relationship with our kids? My ex-wife, 40 female, and I, 40 male, have 2 children together, Amy, 12 female, and Noah, 11 male. We used to be civil, even though our breakup and divorce could be described as messy. It was for the best. We got along better than a lot of divorced parents have known. We always shared custody of our children, and my ex-wife had another child soon after our marriage ended. My ex-wife remarried about 3 years after our divorce, and she and her husband have 3 children together. So, my ex has 6 children, and I understand this can make it hard to give all the kids individual time. But our kids have increasingly felt like they matter less than their half-siblings. They've brought up the fact that their half-siblings get one-on-one time with her, not just when they're with me. Their half-siblings can ask for time with just their mom or just their dad. However, when Amy and Noah ask for time with just their mom, they're told she doesn't have time or that they would want to spend time with everyone because they're part of a big family and aren't always there. There's also been tension when our kids introduce me and my ex as their parents and refer to my ex's husband as their stepdad. They also call their half-siblings just that, half-siblings. My ex doesn't like it. She said her 3rd child doesn't say it, but that child doesn't have a relationship with her biological dad. Our kids pointed out that this makes it different for her. My ex told them there should be no halves or steps because they're all family. She also uses the fact that Amy and Noah live with me 50% of the time as a reason for them not to use those terms and not to expect time alone with her. However, she and her other kids openly talk about outings where she takes one child to the arcade or trampoline park when Amy and Noah aren't there. For example, Amy had a Mother's Day event at her music class and asked her mom to come. Her mom brought the other girls along to make it a girls' day. Another time, Amy wanted her mom to drive her to a show she was performing in, but her mom said it should be a family outing. Amy then asked if I could take the day off work to take her. It was my parenting time, but since I was working and Amy wanted her mom, I said it was fine if she asked her. Amy's mom wasn't happy about it, but Amy said she didn't want it to be a family thing. Similarly, Noah invited his mom to take part in his cooking classes, but she always wants to bring her husband or some of the other kids. He also wanted to celebrate with her over a milkshake after getting a good grade on a test, despite his school messing up by not providing his dyslexia aid. She insisted it couldn't be one-on-one. There are many examples like this. We're now at the point where the kids would love to live with me more, but they have to be at least 16 for a judge to consider their wishes. Last week, Noah had a talent show during my parenting time. Both of us are notified of school events, but Noah chose not to tell his mom or invite her. She found out about it after he won, and it was posted on social media. She called to complain and upset Noah so much that I had to step in. She told me I should have informed her, and I said I didn't have to. We both received notifications, and it's on each of us to stay updated. She accused me of coming between her and the kids, and I told her it wasn't my fault she was damaging her relationship with them by denying them one-on-one time. She said it wasn't fair, and that it's easier for me because I only have Amy and Noah. I pointed out that she makes time for her other kids, even finding babysitters or having her husband watch the kids, but she can't be bothered to do the same for Amy and Noah. She called me an ass and accused me of interfering in her relationship with them. Am I the a-hole? No, not the a-hole. She has made efforts herself to destroy her relationship with her kids without your help. She's doing this to herself and then blaming you? Not acceptable. You've done nothing wrong. Her inability to be available to her children and give them the attention and care they need is 100% her own doing. Hopefully this is a wake-up call for her, but it won't be. When the kids move in with you full-time, I'm sure he'll tell everyone it's your fault. She wants to be a victim and take no responsibility for her actions. Don't let her. Exactly. The fact that she's upset with him instead of reflecting on why her kids are pulling away speaks volumes. Opie is not sabotaging their relationship, she is. If she genuinely wants to repair things, she needs to prioritize Amy and Noah instead of making excuses or blaming Opie. Not the a-hole. Props to you for being there for your children, mate. One word of advice, nothing will come out of arguing with her. You should have just told her that you both get notified by the school and that's how you knew. Then ask if she isn't following notifications about the kids, as they could be extremely important. You two broke up. It's not your job to remind her of events. Luckily for you, the kids are on your side anyway. It's not your duty to make sure she's in the loop. If she's not following up, that's on her. You're already doing more than enough for your kids. Next story. Am I the a-hole for becoming a stay-at-home parent when I did not support my ex being stay-at-home? I, 33 male, share a 3-year-old son with my ex, 29 female. We broke up before our son was born. One of the reasons we broke up was her insistence on being a stay-at-home parent until our child reached school age, at least. Obviously, she needed to stay home for the months after the birth to recover. But once she had recovered, I did not support her continuing not to work. I did not want a relationship where she was financially dependent on me. We also disagreed on concepts like gender roles within the family. We had both been rather progressive, but after getting pregnant, she started expounding a lot more traditional views. In any case, our son was born and we co-parent. We have 50-50 custody, but I make more than my ex, so I pay health insurance, child care, and child support. Tragically, a year after my son was born, my mother was killed in an accident involving a semi-truck. My twin brother, who is a family law/divorce attorney, had one of his law school classmates look into the accident. It turned out that the semi-driver was over the federally allowed hours to drive. As you can imagine, this really affected my perspective on things. We ended up receiving a substantial settlement. I decided to take a step back from my career. I'm an accountant, and I signed a freelance contract with my firm that gives me the flexibility to spend as much time with my son as I want. I still pay for insurance, childcare, and child support. Note, the settlement has no impact on my child support. Trust me, I have had the best family law firm in the state look into it. On my time, I usually keep my son with me, and we spend a day together going to the park, museums, library, etc. My ex has expressed her frustrations at my hypocrisy. She says I am now a stay-at-home parent, but I wouldn't let her be one. I told her the situations are different because I am not financially dependent on anyone. That was my chief concern with her being a stay-at-home parent. This is causing issues in our co-parenting relationship. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You are not a stay-at-home parent. You are employed on a flexible contract that allows you to be fully present with your son during your custody time. What's the issue here? Also, she is welcome to establish the same setup. For example, she could flex her workload to the times she doesn't have physical custody. That is not your issue to solve. Not the a-hole. I can definitely understand her frustration and jealousy. You're living the life she wanted, being able to stay home though you're still working. But that doesn't make you an a-hole. You're doing what's best for you and your child. She shouldn't be taking her frustration out on you. While I get it, it's not fair to you, and it's a completely different situation. You didn't want another dependent, which is understandable. She's definitely the a-hole here, not the a-hole. Disagree. OP is still working and has to deal with the premature loss of his mother in tragic circumstances. His ex just wanted to not work. She's twisting the narrative to fit her sour grapes. There's no way you don't see why your ex is upset. You're living the parenting dream she wanted. Yeah, he is not the a-hole. But the way he talks about stay-at-home parents is kind of dismissive, especially as she just wanted to stay at home until the kid was in school and they seemingly had the money. Low-key getting the vibe he implied she was a mooch or something, hence her anger. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not selling my car even though my fiancé refuses to sit in the front seat because my ex sat there? Hi everyone, I'm 27 male engaged to my fiancé 26 female. And while we're preparing for our wedding, something recently came up that's left me confused and conflicted. I want to know if I'm in the wrong here or if her reaction is unreasonable. Here's the issue. My fiancé refuses to sit in the front seat of my car because my ex used to sit there. She says it makes her uncomfortable and feels like she's taking what someone else's. Instead, she insists on sitting in the back seats whenever we go somewhere, which honestly feels strange to me, like I'm her chauffeur. I offered to sell the car if it truly bothers her, but she told me not to because it would feel like she's forcing me to do something. However, she still won't sit in the front seat and avoids interacting with anything related to my past relationships. This is part of a bigger pattern. She's mentioned multiple times that she doesn't want to do things I've done with my ex, like cuddling on a couch during a movie or visiting places I've been to before. I've tried to be understanding of her feelings, but I'm starting to feel like I'm being held responsible for my past, which I can't change. It's also confusing because she keeps in touch with her own ex, occasionally texting or calling him, which I have no issue with as I trust her. Whenever these situations come up, she tends to withdraw emotionally, avoiding physical affection, not saying goodnight, or being distant. While I love her and want to work through this, I'm starting to feel like I'm walking on eggshells around her emotions, especially when they tied to things I can't control, like my past. She sounds emotionally immature. Honestly, I would hold off on marrying her until she has some serious therapy sessions under her belt, not the a-hole. This is what I came to say as well. She sounds like she needs a whole lot of therapy to sort out her relational problems, insecurities, double standards, and obsession with your ex. Good luck. Not the a-hole. This is controlling behavior. Stop playing her games. If she won't sit next to you in the front of the car, then don't drive her anymore. Ultimately, this relationship isn't going to work out. It would be messier and more expensive to get a divorce than to choose not to marry this woman in the first place. Even if you don't want to end a relationship, you should put wedding plans on hold and get couples counseling. Thank you so much for your advice. I'm seriously considering calling off the wedding. When I spoke to her about it earlier today in another car, not the one my ex sat in, she dismissed my concerns, removed her seatbelt, and started screaming at me during the argument, saying it's normal. She doesn't contribute to practical matters like wedding or honeymoon planning, and instead compares me to her dad, expecting me to take care of everything. She minimizes her toxic behaviors, blames PMS, and rarely apologizes. So yeah, listing all these out has really helped. Surely you want to marry a best friend and partner, not an enemy. You're set up for disaster and your life will probably become a nightmare. Leave while you can. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my stepfather walk me down the aisle? Backstory. My father died when I was 12 and my older brother was 17. He was practically a boy when my mother went into a depression that affected her for years. My brother stepped in and took care of us. He helped out around the house and helped me with school while my mother was getting treatment. He basically became my father figure. I didn't want him to grow up so fast, but I was just a little girl who had just been orphaned. There wasn't much I could do. Time skip. Now I'm 26 and my brother is 31. My mother got better years later and met a guy named Adam who seems really nice, but he can't have children biologically. That's why his wife separated from him years ago. The problem is, I'm getting married in 2 months, and my stepfather insists on walking me down the aisle because it would be the only chance he has to do something like that. However, I really want my brother to walk me down the aisle because no one deserves this more than him. Now half of my family is on my side, and the other half says I should go with my stepfather because my brother would look aesthetically weird next to me since we're close in age. What do? Tell everyone to go F themselves? Lose the chance to have my brother walk me down the aisle? I don't know how to talk to my mother because she isn't very mentally stable anymore. Possible relevant info: Mom 55, stepdad 55, and they've been together since I was 20. The weirdness of telling an adult you didn't even know as a kid that you want them to be a centerpiece of your wedding day is, well, weird. Really weird. Like you've only known this dude for a few years. That would be aesthetically weird. This is just some weird boundary stomping. I have taken your thoughts and feelings into consideration. I will be continuing with having my brother, who acted as a father to me in my formative years, walk me down the aisle. I look forward to enjoying the day and consider this conversation closed. And then shut it down. Anytime it's brought up, hand up, walk away, or don't respond to the text. Because this is just weird behavior. Not the a-hole. Honestly, it's just uncomfortable. I don't hate him or anything, but he can't idolize me as the daughter he couldn't have. That will just make things worse for everybody. I'm not trying to create drama. I'm sad. I just want everyone celebrating. I've put a lot of effort into my wedding, partly because I want to start fresh and build a family after everything that happened. But nobody besides my fiancé seems to understand that. Am I the a-hole for being such a B to my dad's wife after my mom died? My 17 female parents got divorced 6 years ago because my dad was cheating. His wife, Hazel, worked with my mom and knew us, so the breakup was bad. My brother, 19 male, and I didn't think much of our dad after finding out what he did, and our relationship with him was never the same. We never liked his wife, and over time, I grew to hate her. She expected things to be okay, and of course they weren't. I don't know why she thought my brother and I would like her, or why she thought my mom would care about what happened to her. Things got even nastier when the divorce was finalized, and my dad married Hazel. She was pregnant but miscarried a few days before the wedding. She called my mom to ask her to take us to the hospital to see her, and my mom said no. Hazel cried over the phone to my mom, talking about her miscarriage and how she needed her family around her for support. My mom told her she had no compassion for the woman who broke up her marriage. Hazel then called my mom again, claiming my mom set a bad example and asking her to think about the sibling my brother and I lost. My mom told her she was glad it happened because we wouldn't have to deal with a half-sibling from her and dad since they were both cheating sluts. I think she said sluts, but I couldn't hear everything. Hazel went nuts and never forgot what my mom said. Once I was old enough, I stopped going to my dad's house too and ignored any contact from Hazel. I only spoke to my dad occasionally, so my mom wouldn't get in trouble for not encouraging contact. Hazel, however, would sometimes show up when my dad did and would act hostile toward my mom, expecting us to side with her. My mom was diagnosed with cancer in January and passed away 3 weeks ago. My brother and I were with her when she passed. Dad came over when he heard and insisted we go to his house, even though we didn't want to. Hazel was there waiting and tried to hug us, but we shut her down. My brother and I were crying, and I asked my brother how we were supposed to deal with all this. Dad said he was there for us and that we needed to lean on him. Then Hazel said that bad influence is finally out of our lives, and now we can work on building relationships with each other. My brother cursed at her and told her to shut up. Hazel responded that our mom was to blame for how we acted and said it was sad we didn't see her for the disgusting POS she was. She even brought up the phone call years ago and said I heard what my mom told her, yet I still chose my mom. I told her she was twisted for thinking I'd ever choose my dad's mistress over my mom. I also said she was a disgusting, nasty person and deserved everything my mom had said to her and more. Hazel lost it, and my brother took me to our grandparents' house. Dad tried to stop us from leaving and begged me to come back, but I said no. We've stayed with our grandparents since. My brother and I have shut Dad out completely and didn't tell him anything about the funeral, even though he asked. Hazel has tried reaching out to me, but I ignored her. Now both Dad and Hazel are texting me, saying I need to apologize for being so awful to her because it's not her fault Mom died. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Hazel really said, I broke up your family, disrespected your mom, and now I'm the victim? Girl, what? The audacity is on sale and she bought the whole shelf. You don't owe her a single apology. She's been messy since day one. Keep chilling with your grandparents and brother. That's the real support squad. You forgot the fact that she was happy about their mom dying and said it out loud in front of OP, her brother, and Dad. Dad didn't even have the spine to stand up to her after her horrible comments. Right after her mom died. I just lost my mom. If someone said that to me, I would go supernova. Block Hazel and your father and stop picking up their calls. You're not the a-hole. You and your brother only have each other right now, along with your grandparents. You need to mourn your loss. Losing your mother is a debilitating and tragic loss that you will carry for the rest of your lives. You are almost 18 and becoming an adult. Tell Hazel that you will get a protection order and charge her with harassment if she keeps up with her nonsense. Condolences to you and your brother for your loss. Hazel is nobody to you, your brother, or your family. You need to find a way to mourn your mother and ensure you and your brother receive her Social Security survivor benefits and any life insurance benefits. You are both almost adult beneficiaries. If your mother had a will before her passing, make sure it is executed. Get professional help and consult a lawyer to assist you and your brother in securing your mother's assets from her marriage. Again, you are not the a-hole, and my condolences to you and your brother for your loss. OP, please get a lawyer and ensure your mother's estate is settled. I'm so deeply sorry you have to navigate this loss at such a young age. Please get a good lawyer to review everything and make sure you and your brother are taken care of. It wouldn't shock me if your dad and Hazel try to swoop in to help take care of the assets. Again, I am so sorry for your loss. Just keep moving forward through the pain. I'd also recommend speaking with a therapist to help you as you go through the stages of grief. Sending you and your brother love. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying to take my son's girlfriend on vacation? I have two sons, 22 and 23. They both have serious girlfriends they have been dating for over 2 years. Jordan's girlfriend is an amazing young lady. She has a great head on her shoulders, is sweet, smart, polite, good to my parents, responsible, and balances my son perfectly. They make a great team. Tyler's girlfriend, on the other hand, is selfish, entitled, manipulative, and dislikes our family. She scares me and the rest of the family and friends with her behavior. Both of my sons are in love and plan to marry these young ladies. I was divorced when both boys were in diapers, so it has been the three of us for years. We are very close. We have always traveled together. Jordan's girlfriend has been on 2 trips with us that I paid for. A trip to Vegas for Jordan's 21st and a charity boat poker run on Lake Michigan. Both of these trips involved bars, so Tyler's girlfriend, who was 20 at the time, was not invited. She became angry that she wasn't included. My husband of 2 years and I own a vacation home on a lake. My husband planned a guy's trip for 1 week. Tyler's girlfriend got irate because she wanted to use the house that same week, the week before she turned to college. Tyler has now informed me that his girlfriend must be invited on all trips and I will be expected to pay for her or he won't come. My husband has said she is not welcome at the vacation house until she stops acting so entitled. We were planning a family vacation to the Bahamas for Christmas. Per Jordan's request, I canceled the family trip, upgraded my husband and me to first class in a suite, and decided we'd enjoy the trip without them. Jordan thought the family trip would be miserable with Tyler's girlfriend there and wanted me to have a good time. Now Tyler and his girlfriend are furious. Am I the a-hole for not paying to take my future daughter-in-law on vacation? Not the a-hole. This isn't about playing favorites. It's about respecting boundaries and behavior. You're not the a-hole. You're not obligated to pay for anyone's vacation. Jordan's girlfriend has shown kindness, responsibility, and appreciation, so including her on trips feels natural. Tyler's girlfriend, on the other hand, has been manipulative and demanding. It's not unreasonable to say no to someone who behaves that way. Honestly, if someone demands to be included or throws a fit when they're not, that's on them. Tyler's ultimatum says more about him than you. He's free to skip trips, but you're free to set the terms for your own vacations. He can make his own decisions, but he doesn't get to dictate yours. And you shouldn't be guilted into funding someone who doesn't even respect you. Amazing on Jordan for pushing to have you enjoy that trip and having the wherewithal to see the obvious problem. No comments other than the entitled girl is so out of touch with reality, it's terrifying. Jordan's response says a lot about his character too. He clearly values family and recognizes what's best for everyone involved. It's a shame Tyler is prioritizing his girlfriend's tantrums over family dynamics. Setting boundaries is essential for long-term harmony. Not the a-hole. She's not even family yet, and she's already acting like this? Lol. You're not obligated to fund her vacations, especially when she's being so disrespectful to you and your husband. Tyler needs to wake up and realize this is not normal or acceptable behavior from a partner. You did the right thing by setting boundaries. Enjoy that first-class suite. The fact that those kids just expect her to pay is baffling, and they threaten they won't come otherwise. Plus, she wanted to use a house she doesn't own. What a joke. I would have said, I guess we won't be vacationing together then. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom's boyfriend his kids will never be family? Roughly more than a year ago, my mother introduced me to her boyfriend. Since then, my 3 siblings have been introduced to his 3 kids, and our families have been merged. Although we still live in separate homes, his family is over at our house all the time. It's very obvious that he is purposely leaving me and my older siblings out of the family plans. Last year, during Thanksgiving, I was informed only 3 days beforehand that all of his kids, including his adult child, my 2 younger siblings, and my mother were going to visit our grandparents 6 states away. My older sibling and I were blindsided. We didn't have enough time to pull together funds or arrange time off to join them. When we brought this up to our mom, she simply said, "I guess you can join us next time," and added that she thought we already knew. This left me and my sibling alone for a week during Thanksgiving. We each ended up going to separate family members' houses who we don't see often. Both of us were deeply hurt by this incident, and it made us reflect on how many family trips they've had without inviting us or telling us until the day off. We kept our mouths shut until now. With Christmas approaching, we were worried they'd pull the same stunt again. Thankfully, they didn't, but we were told to make sure we got his kids gifts because they're now our siblings. Having to buy gifts for 3 people we aren't even close to really sucked, but my sibling and I begrudgingly did so. Today, I found out that his kids weren't getting any gifts from my siblings. Not even the adult child, despite them all having jobs. This really ticked me off, and I ended up lashing out at both my mom and her boyfriend. I told him I didn't care about him or his kids, and that if he wants to play family, he's doing a terrible job acting like a father. He retorted that he doesn't need to share his life with adult kids, and that, to him, we're just part of my mom's past. I'll admit I got nasty after that. I told him his kids were baggage and that my mom didn't need more children to deal with. I said I'd never look at his spoiled brats as family. My mom started crying and her boyfriend screamed at me to leave. So I did. I'm currently staying at a friend's place, but I'm wondering if I went too far. I don't care if I was an a-hole to her boyfriend, I already know that part. But was I an a-hole to my mom? I just want her to remember she still has 2 kids who see her as their mother, and she can't just forget about us because her boyfriend won't acknowledge us. Edit. I'm 20 and my older sibling is 17. I only referred to them as older because they're older than my 2 younger siblings, who are both under 10. I pay half the rent and household expenses at my mom's house, and without my contributions, we wouldn't have a roof over our heads, as I'm sure everyone knows how expensive it is to live independently right now, let alone with 3 kids. I plan to go back home and understand that her boyfriend can't kick me out of the house where my name is on the lease. For now, I'm cooling off. I just wanted to clarify some things for everyone. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but your mom needs a reality check. Me and my sibling were blindsided as we didn't have enough time to pull together funds or time off to join them. We brought this up to our mom, and she simply said she guesses we can join the next time and she thought we knew. That left us alone for a week during Thanksgiving. Your mom is being pretty cold-heartless here. My sibling and I begrudgingly did so. We don't remember how it got brought up today, but I found out his kids weren't getting any of my siblings' gifts. Not even the adult despite them all having jobs. If you're a grown man who's married to someone with children from another relationship, why are they expecting her to spend money on your kids? Are there no other options than for her or him? This really ticked me off and I ended up lashing out on both of them, specifically my mother's boyfriend. I told him that I don't care about him or his kids, but if he wants to play family, he's doing a terrible job acting like a father. You were absolutely right in your assessment here. You have every right to be angry and upset. Your mom has abandoned her children for this man who doesn't even acknowledge them as such? Yep, you pay half the rent and bills, and this dude comes and stays at your house with his children all the time. Then he has the audacity to yell at you to leave a house you pay for? Nope, shut that down right now. Firstly, if he and his kids are there, they need to be paying their share. Secondly, he needs a reminder of whose name is on the lease and who's paying the rent. You need to have a serious sit-down conversation with your mom. There's no way it's fair for you to be financially contributing this much and then being treated like you don't matter. Your mom needs to be reminded that her children should be her priority, not some entitled guy she's dating. Last story. Am I the a-hole for confusing my baby sister into believing I'm her mom? I'm 16 female and my dad passed away last year. My parents were divorced before that and they used to split custody. My mom has been remarried to my stepdad for years. My baby sister turned 1 a couple of days ago and my mom is 5 months pregnant with a baby boy. I guess the problem started when my sister began teething. It was at the beginning of summer break and my mom would just let her cry it out alone in her nursery. My sister is loud. Not only was it annoying, but it was also kind of sad because she's just a baby going through pain alone. So I started picking her up and trying to soothe her. Being held and chewing on her fingers seemed to help. And after seeing a TikTok of a teething baby using a cucumber, I tried that too. It worked like magic. I thought babies only teeth once, but I was so wrong. It became a routine for me to take care of her a lot. Mom didn't seem to care as long as she wasn't crying, and I actually liked hanging out with her. It wasn't 24/7 obviously. I had a part-time job and friends. But whenever I came home, she would practically leap out of mom or stepdad's arms to come to me. She also started fuzzing a lot whenever mom tried to put her to sleep, kicking and crying, but she didn't do that to me. With me, she just cuddles up to my chest and falls asleep. I thought this was just normal baby behavior, but my mom was fuming after my sister's birthday party. My sister wouldn't let mom hold her for pictures or during the cake cutting. Then my grandma made a comment about my sister and me being like Siamese twins, which I took as us just being close. I didn't think it was a big deal. My mom was clearly upset though, and after the party, she told me I'm confusing my sister into thinking I'm her mom, and that I need to take a step back. But what am I supposed to do? Ignore her when she cries or babbles for me? It's not like I push my mom out of the way to get to her. Usually, mom is napping or in the bathroom, and I just don't want my sister crying her lungs out. Not the a-hole. Your sister prefers you over your mother because your mother has failed her as a parent. From the sounds of it, you're the only one who comforts her when she cries, shows her affection, gives her your time, and cares for her needs beyond the basics. Your mother is a bad parent. Who leaves a baby to scream and cry and thinks that's okay? If she wants to throw a hissy fit over the fact that her teenager is a more attentive parent than her, let her. Keep doing what you're doing because you're helping your sister more than you realize. I just want to clarify that she doesn't ignore her. But when my sister was teething, she said there's nothing she can do for her anyway, because it's something all babies go through. Yes, all babies go through it. That's why we have hundreds of ways to manage it. Parents have been soothing their children through teething for as long as humans have had teeth. Even if you can't stop the pain, the comfort of someone being there and paying attention helps. Your mother was seriously harming your sister emotionally by ignoring her. Not the a-hole. When I was younger, my mom would lock me in my room thinking it would make me go to sleep. It didn't. It traumatized me. I hate the dark and being alone, and she didn't care. She neglected and abused me throughout my childhood. And only now in my teens am I realizing how horrible she really was. She calls it rebelling when I don't want her near me. Please try to get out of that toxic environment, like I'm trying to do. No mother should feel jealous of her daughter for being a better parent than her. Would I be the a-hole if I sign away the right to my kids? I am a single mom of 2 wonderful boys. I honestly feel lucky about how they've turned out. They're both giants for their age, but so kind and sweet. I share custody with my ex-husband, Drew. We've been divorced for 5 years now. Every year, it's becoming harder and harder to support us. It's all my fault, and I don't know what else to do. I was with my husband for 14 years, married for 11. We got married relatively young and had kids soon after. I remember the last couple of years feeling trapped in my marriage. Life became very monotonous and boring. I felt resentment for missing out on my youth and not being able to join my friends on night outs. Drew and I grew apart. We neglected us. Or maybe I neglected him, and he stopped trying. Who knows, but it certainly wasn't exciting. All these feelings built up in me until one day I told him I wanted a divorce. I couldn't imagine living another month like that, let alone the rest of our lives. He pleaded for us to try to work it out, maybe go away somewhere. But once I said it out loud, I felt like I had a purpose. Once he realized there was no going back, he said we should split amicably. I'm not proud of the way I acted back then. I got a lawyer and went through with it. In the end, we split the assets, including the proceeds from the sale of the house, evenly and shared custody of the kids, just like he offered. I got child support, only $19 more per month than he initially offered. No alimony, and a pile of attorney's fees. The first few months after the divorce was great. I had a good support system, plenty of babysitting options as everyone was trying to be supportive. Friends took me out, keeping my mind off things and helping me make up for lost time. But after a while, the help dried up. Everyone became busy with their own problems. It was much harder to make ends meet on a single income. The apartment I rented was a big downgrade from our house. I was tired all the time. Whenever Drew had a boys, I would just end up watching TV and lying around instead of going out. I've had one semi-serious relationship, but it's extremely hard to meet men who are serious about building something. Drew became very distant. I've heard of co-parenting situations where exes get along great. Not Drew. He'd never responds to my texts, unless it's about the kids. As the boys get older, they're enrolled in 3 sports each, and there are more and more expenses. I can't afford to buy them everything they need, not even half of it. Last month, I finally talked to Drew about it. I asked him to be more involved in their lives, especially financially. Drew flat out refused to contribute the cent more beyond child support and what he pays for when they're with him. I explained that I simply can't keep up with everything. He finally said they're welcome to stay with him full-time, and he'll cover all their expenses and be wholly responsible for them if I give him full custody and sign away my rights. He said I could still see them whenever I like, but I wouldn't have any legal rights. I know the boys would love to live with him. They're too nice to say it outright, but it's obvious that dad is the favorite parent. Am I the a-hole for even considering this? Would I be the a-hole if I went through with it? Edit? To answer some questions people have, yes. I have tried to talk to Drew about modifying the custody agreement. He refused any change to our current arrangement unless I sign away my rights. I also talked to Drew about increasing child support and told him I'd go to court. He said, "Go ahead, you'll end up with less." After last time, I'm very hesitant to go down that road. I don't want to tell the kids to drop an activity they love because I can't afford it. Now for the top comments. You don't sign your rights away. You can legally give him full custody with visitation. Then she also better be prepared to fork over child support. You're the a-hole. Why would your ex talk to you about anything other than the kids? He's your ex. Of course kids cost money. Get a second job if you need more money. Instead, you're looking to build a serious relationship with someone. Really? It sounds like you just want to dump your kids on your ex and pretend you're a teenager again. It sounds exactly like this. I realize that every situation is different, but if the dad pays half the expenses and child support and she still can't make ends meet, it sounds like she may not be working. In this situation, you have to find a source of income. Also, I agree she sounds like she wanted to relive her youth, but figured out she couldn't just go back in time and regrets it now. Why is she texting her ex about anything other than the kids? Sorry if this is harsh, OP, but you can make this work if you're able to get a job to supplement the support you're receiving. Even if it's difficult, it's easier than giving up your kids, or at least it should be. He only talks about the kids. What do you think co-parenting is? You chose to divorce him. You don't get to have him act as your husband just because you feel lonely. You need to get over yourself. And maybe you're right in thinking your kids will be better off with their father. I think this happened because OP lawyered up and played hardball, only to get a predictable amount of child support. It has made the ex resentful, and rightly so. I deal with someone at arm's length if they were unduly litigious with me. Yeah, sounds like dad already punched the numbers into the state's website and thus offered her what the state would order. She instead got greedy and went to a lawyer in order to get more than what the state says she should get, as well as alimony. Lawyer knew they wouldn't get more, but happily went along in order to get billable hours. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling off my wedding after my fiancé's surprise gift? So I, 30 female, have been engaged to my fiancé Mark, 32 male, for about a year, and we've been together for 3 years. I've always known Mark to be a bit unconventional. He's very creative and sometimes takes things a little too far in the name of surprise or excitement. Most of the time, I love his adventurous spirit, but this time, not so much. A couple of weeks ago, we had a small get-together with some close friends to celebrate our upcoming wedding. Mark mentioned he had a surprise for me, which I figured would be something sweet, like a heartfelt gift or maybe a romantic gesture. As the night went on, after a few drinks, Mark finally revealed his gift. He pulled out what looked like a box from a special jewelry store. My heart raced with excitement. I assumed it was a lovely bracelet or a special memento for our wedding day. But when he opened the box, I was absolutely stunned. Inside was a key to a house he had supposedly bought for us. I was taken aback because I had no idea he was even looking for a real estate. My first reaction was one of shock and confusion. I thought this was a huge decision that we should have discussed together. As I processed the moment, I realized the house wasn't just any house. It was a fixer-upper on the outskirts of town. While I understand that fixer-uppers can be a great investment, this particular house needed a ton of work, major renovations and repairs. Frankly, I had no desire to live there. Mark hadn't consulted me at all before making this purchase, and I felt blindsided. Normally, I would be overjoyed about investing in our future together, but the fact that he made such a significant commitment without involving me crushed me. I quietly took the key and told him we needed to talk. As we stepped outside, I expressed how hurt I felt that he had made such a big decision without discussing it with me first, and that it felt like a violation of trust. Mark got defensive and insisted that this was a wonderful surprise, a way for us to start our lives together. He said I was missing the bigger picture and that I should be excited about our future. Honestly, I just felt overwhelmed and confused. I told him I didn't think we were ready for this and that we should focus on our wedding first. After a heated argument, I made a gut-wrenching decision to call off the wedding. Mark was devastated and our friends were shocked. I had just ruined what was supposed to be a happy night and I felt horrible. Since then, Mark has been trying to reach out, saying he wishes we could talk it over, but I can't shake the feeling that he disrespected my feelings and my input in our relationship. I've been reflecting on whether I overreacted. Am I the a-hole for calling off the wedding after a surprise gift? Not the a-hole. Making a major life decision without you isn't a good way to start a marriage. It also sets a precedent for the marriage. Not only is it a surprise house, it's a surprise fixer-upper. That's not even a gift, it's a job. I don't think anyone would assume their partner would want to be left out of such an important choice. And most likely, she wasn't on the title if he already purchased it, not the a-hole. That was my takeaway too. He buys it himself and it is not marital property. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if he bought the house without you, then it's in his name. He's the sole owner, but he wants you to help pay for the renovations? Nope, bad move. If the marriage fails, it's still his house, and you'll be left with nothing. This, buying a surprise house before marriage, means it is his house. It's a classic tactic of manipulative partners to secure assets in their own name before marriage, then use their partner's contributions to improve those assets without giving them any ownership rights. Not the a-hole. Terrible judgment on Mark's part. But the real problem here was his response when you pointed out the obvious. He argued with you. The light bulb didn't go on for him that you don't make decisions like this without your partner. This is a sign that he'll surprise you with a new puppy, his brother moving into your house, or quitting his job to take out a loan for a family business, and then argue with you when you say it should have been discussed first. Plus, a fixer-upper sounds hideous. Exactly. Mark didn't just sign Opie up for a huge financial obligation she never asked for, but for a chaotic, messy life in a fixer-upper. Not everyone is excited by that. He took away her autonomy and demanded she be excited about it. My heart would have sunk, just like Opie's. Not the a-hole, and maybe this was just the wake-up call Opie needed. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I leave the state, abandoning my family? I, 25 female, moved 3 hours away from home to live with my boyfriend, who was fortunate enough to land a government job, and 2 of our other friends about 3 months ago. This move was largely due to my mom, 61 female, consistently taking most of my money, leaving me with almost nothing to my name. She had surgery on her back this morning, so I took off work and returned home for 3 days to help her and take care of my high support needs autistic twin brother, 25 male. My 2 aunts, Amy 63 female and Beth 69 female, and I were all under the impression that my mom would be discharged tomorrow morning. However, after the surgery, the hospital informed Aunt Amy that my mom wouldn't be released until the day after, due to the high level of pain she's experiencing. The issue is, I am due back at work that morning at 9 a.m. The day before her surgery, my mom dropped a bombshell on me. She said I owe her $6,000 before she will take her name off the car we co-own. I was 17 with no credit when it was first purchased, and the down payment came from my dad's life insurance. Between this demand, rent, and my upcoming car insurance payment, I cannot afford to take more time off work. Both my mom and aunts are calling me selfish for needing to go back home to work. They're insisting that I call in and request emergency family leave, which, to my knowledge, isn't an option at my company. They want me to stay and care for my brother. While it's true that he legally cannot be left alone, he attends a day program from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. 4 days a week, including the next 2 days. This means my aunts would only need to watch him for a part of the day. I even offered to leave later in the day that I'm comfortable with, as driving in the dark in my new area is challenging for me. But this was also seen as not enough. I feel conflicted. While I don't want to potentially leave my brother without proper care, my aunts have already admitted they don't want to stay overnight with him. Aunt Amy refuses to stay at our house because of the puppy my mom recently got, while Aunt Beth claims she'll get sick if she spends too much time around my brother, citing the number of people he interacts with. At the same time, I have a life I'm working hard to build, and I can't afford to jeopardize my job and financial stability. So would I be the a-hole if I go back home to work and leave my brother in the care of my aunts for a day? Now for the comments. You have 2 aunts who can step in until your mother goes home. Go back to your new life. You will not be the a-hole. It's time your mother understands you are moving on. You're right. It's time for your mom to understand that you're an adult with your own life. You can't be responsible for her and your brother all the time. Your aunts are adults too, and they need to step up. You're not abandoning your family. You're taking care of yourself. You've got a job, a life, and a future to build. Don't let them guilt you into staying. You're not the a-hole here. not the a-hole. Your mother has stolen more than enough from you. I don't even know why you would go back to help her in the first place. Seriously, this sounds like lifetime of nightmares and abuse. Cut her off. Give the car back. Make a break. I have obligations that I cannot and will not set aside. Mother is forcing me to pay back my car deposit and is holding it hostage until I do. And since she took the majority of my earnings when I lived with her, I have no savings. The money I earn pays my rent and bills. I will not be staying to help because I have a responsibility to myself first, and then to my roommates who rely on me to pay my share of rent. I will not be staying. There are 2 of you. Figure it out. Aunt Amy, the dog isn't that big of a deal. Deal with it. Aunt Beth, wear a mask if you're concerned about getting sick. Those are my suggestions. Then leave. Last story. Am I the a-hole for having another kid and not spending enough time with my daughter? I, 29 male, serve in the U.S. Air Force and currently live in the U.S., but my 7-year-old daughter lives in Switzerland with her mother. Her mother and I met when I was stationed there, and our daughter was born during that time. When my assignment ended, I had to return to the U.S., and we agreed that our daughter would stay in Switzerland, as her mother could provide a more stable environment. For the past 3 years, I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend, and we recently welcomed a baby boy, who is now 3 months old. While I'm thrilled about having another child, my daughter has been struggling with the changes. I visit my daughter a few times a year and video call her multiple times a week. We've always been close, but since I told her about the baby, she's been acting out. During our calls, she's distant and often refuses to talk about anything. When I visited Switzerland recently, she was cold, avoided spending time with me, and said things like, "You don't love me anymore," and "Your new baby is your real family now." Her mother has also told me that she's been misbehaving at school, getting into trouble, and becoming increasingly withdrawn. Her mother blames me for her behavior. She says our daughter feels abandoned and replaced by the baby, and that I was selfish for having another child when I already struggled to spend enough time with her. She argued that I should have focused on strengthening my bond with our daughter instead of starting a new family. I've tried to reassure my daughter that I'll love her just as much as ever. During my visits, I've spent one-on-one time with her and tried to make her feel special. I've also suggested bringing her to the US for an extended visit so she can see where I live and meet the baby on her terms. Her mother thinks this isn't enough and says our daughter needs more from me now, not later. Balancing everything has been incredibly hard. My Air Force duties are demanding, and while I've done my best to stay connected, I know it's not the same as being there in person. At the same time, I want to be present for my girlfriend and our baby, who also need me. Am I the a-hole for having another child and not being able to spend as much time with my daughter as she needs? This is complicated. You're not an a-hole for having another child, but your daughter is a child who misses having a full-time father. Seeing that her brother will have a full-time dad when she doesn't hurts her deeply. Ideally, you would live in the same country or city so you could be as present as possible. Annual visits and video calls can't replace the day-to-day presence of a parent. Honestly, I don't know what the solution is for your situation. Exactly. Kids internalize this so much. My guess is she doesn't see this as the situation being complicated because he can be a full-time dad, just not to her. Man, it sucks for the poor girl. My question is, why are there 2 kids and 0 commitments? It's like you have no clue that condoms exist. You knew you weren't going to stay in Switzerland, but you decided, hey, I'll just go have unprotected sex with anyone, and if she gets pregnant, then whatever. Now you're back in the States doing the same thing. Are you going to do the same thing at the next place that you are stationed at? You are most definitely an a-hole. Your daughter is 7, and you never thought about how having a part-time dad would affect her until now? You're the a-hole for not coming up with a real plan all this time, and for having another baby before resolving the issues with your first child.